Look at this! A homeless black man carrying my service weapon!
I found it in the park. I came to return it.
Save your lies for the judge.
Oh my God!
Chikodi,
See him right now.
look at this, a homeless black man carrying a police gun. I guess you finally got tired of begging and decided to steal instead.
I found it in the park,
Officer
sir.
Kyle Mercer sneered
trying
as
to
he
return
strode
it to you.
across the Cedar Ridge Police Department lobby. Without waiting for an explanation, he ripped the faded military jacket
wanted
from
to do the
Isaiah
right
Brooks's
thing.
hands, letting the old fabric
Save
crash
your
onto the
story for the
polished
judge.
floor. The revolver slid across the tiles with a sharp, metallic scrape, drawing gasps from everyone nearby. Mercer planted his boot beside the weapon and jabbed a finger into Isaiah's chest. I knew the moment I saw you that a black drifter like you didn't walk in here looking to do the right thing. You were looking for your next payday. Isaiah slowly raised both hands. I found it in the park, he said quietly. I came here to return it. Mercer threw his head back and laughed. Return it. That's the funniest lie I've heard all year. Men like you don't return police guns, you sell them before sunset. Several officers smirked. Mercer stepped even closer until only inches separated their faces, his voice booming across the crowded lobby. Take a good look, everybody. This is exactly why honest people don't feel safe. A homeless black man walks in with a cop's weapon and expects us to believe he's some kind of hero. He belongs in a holding cell, not standing in front of this badge. A few people nodded. Others quietly began recording with their phones. Isaiah didn't argue. He simply lowered his eyes toward the revolver and whispered, I only wanted to do the right thing. Why save that story for the judge? Mercer snapped as the handcuffs locked around Isaiah's wrists. At that exact moment, the station's front doors opened. Police Chief David Reynolds stopped in his tracks. The instant he saw the handcuffed veteran, something buried deep in his memory stirred. He couldn't explain why, but the face before him was one he had seen long ago on the worst day of his life. Before we uncover the truth, tell us where you're watching from and what your local time is right now. If you believe a person's character should never be judged by appearance, stay with us until the very end. And if stories about courage, justice, and unforgettable second chances speak to you, consider subscribing. You won't want to miss what happens next. To welcome everyone, I've learned that the world feels a whole lot smaller after you've shared a meal, a laugh, and a story with someone you just met. 6 hours earlier, long before cold steel handcuffs closed around his wrists, Isaiah Brooks was sitting alone on a weathered wooden bench beneath a sprawling oak tree in Franklin Memorial Park. The early autumn air carried a chill that slipped easily through the holes in his faded military jacket. Around him, joggers passed without making eye contact. Parents pushed strollers along winding sidewalks. Office workers hurried toward downtown with steaming coffee cups in their hands. To most of them, Isaiah was invisible. Or worse, he was simply another homeless black man who had somehow become part of the scenery. A little girl walking beside her mother glanced curiously toward him. Mom, why does that man always sit here? Before Isaiah could smile, the woman gently pulled her daughter closer. Don't stare, sweetheart. Isaiah lowered his eyes. He had heard those words hundreds of times. He no longer blamed people for being cautious. Life had taught him that appearances often spoke louder than truth. He reached into his worn backpack and removed a neatly folded American flag no larger than a handkerchief. Its edges were beginning to fray. Every morning he unfolded it, carefully brushed away imaginary dust, then folded it again with the same precision he had learned decades earlier in the United States Marine Corps. It was the last physical reminder of the life he had once lived, a life almost nobody believed anymore. Across the street, 12-year-old Emma Collins was arranging bottled water and snacks on a small folding table her grandmother allowed her to run after school. She smiled the moment she saw Isaiah. Morning, Mr. Brooks. Isaiah smiled back. Morning, Emma. You eating today? I'll manage. Emma frowned. You said that yesterday. She quietly picked up a turkey sandwich from beneath the table and walked toward him. My grandma packed an extra one. Isaiah immediately shook his head. You sell those. This one's free. I can't. You can. She crossed her arms stubbornly. My grandma says Marines don't quit, and neither do little girls. Isaiah couldn't help laughing. You sound exactly like her. Emma handed him the sandwich anyway. You'll hurt my feelings if you don't take it. Isaiah accepted it with both hands. Then thank your grandmother for me. I already did. For a brief moment, the weight on Isaiah's shoulders felt lighter. Not because of the food, because someone still saw him as a person. A police cruiser rolled slowly past the park. Officer Kyle Mercer sat behind the wheel. His sharp eyes immediately settled on Isaiah. Again. There he is, Mercer muttered to himself. Same bench, same filthy jacket. His rookie partner glanced outside. He isn't bothering anyone. Mercer snorted. They never do, until they are. Without another word, he drove away. Isaiah never noticed. After finishing half the sandwich, he carefully wrapped the rest inside a napkin. Marcus Green appeared a few minutes later, carrying 2 empty aluminum cans he'd collected that morning. Marcus was nearly 70 with silver hair and aching knees that slowed every step. You saving half? Isaiah nodded. Dinner. Marcus sighed. You ever think about leaving Cedar Ridge? Isaiah looked toward the Veterans Memorial across the park. Every day. So why stay? Isaiah remained silent for several seconds. Because this is where Claire wanted to live. Marcus didn't ask another question. He knew Claire had been Isaiah's wife. He also knew she and their young son had died in a drunk driving crash nearly 9 years earlier. Some wounds never stopped bleeding. At precisely 10:17 a.m., police dispatch crackled through Officer Mercer's radio. Unit 12, possible robbery suspect fleeing Franklin Market. Male gray hoodie heading toward Memorial Park. Mercer's eyes lit up. Copy. I'm 2 blocks away. The patrol car accelerated, hard tires chirping against the pavement. Inside the park, Isaiah heard sirens growing louder. People scattered. Children were pulled away by anxious parents. A young man wearing a gray hoodie sprinted across the grass, weaving between benches, before jumping over a decorative stone wall. Mercer slammed his cruiser to a stop. There! He jumped out before the vehicle had completely settled. Police stop. The suspect never looked back. Mercer chased him through the park, adrenaline drowning out caution. He vaulted over benches, dodged cyclists, nearly collided with a groundskeeper pushing a maintenance cart. The chase lasted less than 2 minutes. The suspect disappeared through a narrow alley behind an apartment complex. Mercer cursed under his breath. He had lost him. Breathing heavily, he leaned against a tree, frustrated. What a waste. Without realizing it, the retention strap on his duty holster had snapped open during the pursuit. As Mercer climbed back into his cruiser and sped away to continue searching, something remained hidden beneath a pile of freshly fallen leaves near the walking trail. His service revolver. No one noticed it. Not Mercer. Not the passing joggers. Not the city maintenance workers. Nearly 20 minutes passed. The park gradually returned to normal. Isaiah stood, stretching his stiff back, before collecting the empty sandwich wrapper. He always cleaned the area before leaving. His father had once told him, "Leave every place better than you found it." It was a lesson the Marines only reinforced. As he bent to pick up a plastic bottle lying near the trail, a dull metallic glint caught his attention beneath the leaves. He frowned. Slowly kneeling, he brushed away the damp foliage. His expression changed instantly. A police-issued revolver. Isaiah froze. His military instincts immediately took over. Without touching the trigger, he carefully lifted the weapon by its textured grip, keeping the barrel pointed safely toward the ground. He examined it only long enough to confirm what he already suspected. It belonged to a police officer. Marcus stared with wide eyes. Isaiah, I know. You know what people will think if they see you holding that. Isaiah looked toward the distant police station several blocks away, then back at the revolver. His stomach tightened. He knew exactly what could happen. A homeless black veteran carrying a police firearm would never look innocent. Not to strangers, not to the police, maybe not to anyone. Marcus lowered his voice. Leave it here. Isaiah slowly shook his head. If a child finds this first. Neither man finished the sentence. Isaiah carefully removed his old Marine field jacket. He wrapped the revolver inside the faded fabric so no one would panic at the sight of a firearm. Then he slung the bundle gently over one shoulder. Marcus grabbed his arm. You don't owe this city anything anymore. Isaiah looked toward the American flag folded inside his backpack. His answer came without hesitation. No. He spoke quietly. But I still owe myself. With that, Isaiah Brooks began walking toward the Cedar Ridge Police Department, completely unaware that every step was carrying him toward the greatest injustice of his life. Isaiah Brooks walked slowly through downtown Cedar Ridge, keeping the faded Marine field jacket folded tightly around the revolver. Every few steps he glanced down to make sure the weapon remained completely covered. He wanted no misunderstandings, no unnecessary fear. The police station stood less than half a mile away. To Isaiah, it felt much farther. A gust of wind swept across Main Street, rattling dry leaves along the sidewalk. People hurried past him without a second glance, until one young businessman accidentally bumped Isaiah's shoulder. The corner of the jacket slipped open. For the briefest moment, polished black steel caught the sunlight. The man's eyes widened. Hey! Isaiah immediately wrapped the jacket tighter. I'm taking it to the police station. The businessman frowned suspiciously before continuing on, repeatedly looking back over his shoulder. Isaiah sighed. This is going to be harder than I thought. He continued walking. 2 blocks away, Officer Kyle Mercer was standing beside his patrol car, furiously searching every compartment. His pulse had begun racing. His service weapon was gone. He checked his holster again. Empty, his face drained of color. No. He replayed the foot pursuit inside his mind. The sprint through Franklin Memorial Park, jumping the benches, sliding across wet grass. The alley, then realization hit him like a hammer. I dropped it. Panic replaced anger. A lost service weapon wasn't simply embarrassing. It could end a career. If internal affairs concluded he had been careless, Mercer could face suspension or worse. He grabbed his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. His voice cracked despite his effort to sound calm. I need additional units searching Franklin Memorial Park immediately. What are we looking for, Unit 12? Mercer hesitated, then quietly answered, my duty weapon. The dispatcher fell silent for a moment. Copy. Within minutes, patrol cars flooded the surrounding streets. Officers spread through the park. Some questioned joggers. Others searched flower beds and playgrounds. Mercer knew every passing minute made the situation worse. Meanwhile, Isaiah stopped outside a small coffee shop, An elderly woman struggled to retrieve her cane after dropping it near the curb. Without hesitation, Isaiah set the wrapped jacket carefully against a brick wall and helped her stand. "Oh, thank you." "My pleasure, ma'am." She smiled warmly. "You have kind eyes." Isaiah chuckled softly. "My wife used to say the same thing." Before the woman could respond, her taxi arrived. Isaiah picked up the bundled jacket once more and continued toward the station. Across the street, Rachel Morgan, a local television reporter, noticed several police vehicles racing toward the park. She instinctively lifted her camera. Something big happened. Her cameraman followed the patrol cars. Neither of them noticed Isaiah walking in the opposite direction. Inside the police station, tension was rising rapidly. Sergeant Robert Hayes looked directly at Mercer. "Tell me exactly what happened." Mercer avoided eye contact. "It must have come loose during the chase." "You checked your equipment before shift?" "Of course." "You understand how serious this is?" Mercer nodded. "I know." Hayes lowered his voice. "If somebody finds that gun before we do." Neither officer finished the sentence. Everyone already understood the consequences. Back outside, Isaiah finally reached Franklin Avenue. Only one intersection remained between him and the station. As he waited for the pedestrian light to change, he noticed flashing blue lights racing past toward the park. His heart sank. They've realized it's missing. For one brief second, doubt entered his mind. Maybe Marcus had been right. Maybe he should have called anonymously. Maybe leaving the revolver where he found it would have spared him trouble. Then another thought pushed those fears away. A child could have found it. Someone with bad intentions could already have taken it. Returning it personally was still the right thing. The light changed. Isaiah crossed the street. Halfway across, a teenage boy pointed toward the bundle under Isaiah's arm. "What's he carrying?" His father shrugged. "No idea." Isaiah tightened his grip and kept walking. Only 50 yards remained. Inside the station, Mercer grabbed another bottle of water with trembling hands. His phone suddenly buzzed. It was dispatch. "Unit 12. We've searched most of the park. Nothing. No weapon yet." Mercer slammed his fist against the desk. "Damn it!" Then another call interrupted. A patrol officer standing near the station entrance spoke into his shoulder microphone. "Possible visual." Mercer's head snapped upward. "What?" "Homeless male approaching the front entrance." "So?" "He's carrying something wrapped inside an old military jacket." Mercer's stomach tightened instantly. Without another word, he sprinted toward the lobby. Outside, Isaiah climbed the concrete steps leading to the Cedar Ridge Police Department. He paused before the glass doors. For a moment, he looked at his reflection. Gray streaks had spread through his short hair. Deep lines surrounded tired eyes that had seen far too much. His jacket was faded. His boots were worn. His beard needed trimming. He barely recognized the decorated Marine he had once been. Still, he straightened his shoulders. Honor wasn't something a uniform created. It was something a person carried long after the uniform was gone. Isaiah took one deep breath, then pushed open the front door. The conversations inside the lobby stopped almost instantly. A receptionist looked up. Two officers near the front desk turned their heads. Isaiah offered a polite smile. "Excuse me." Before he could finish, Mercer burst through the hallway doors. His eyes locked onto the familiar military jacket, then the outline beneath the fabric, his missing revolver. Every fear inside him transformed into instant rage. "There he is!" Mercer shouted loud enough to shake the entire lobby. "Don't move!" Every officer reached for their sidearm. Isaiah instinctively raised one hand. I found... Mercer never allowed him to finish. Gun! He's holding my gun! The room erupted into chaos. Several officers rushed toward Isaiah as terrified civilians scrambled for cover behind chairs and reception desks. Isaiah remained perfectly still. He made no attempt to run. He simply looked around the room and realized that no one saw a man trying to return a lost weapon. They only saw a homeless black veteran standing inside a police station with a gun hidden beneath an old jacket. And in that terrifying instant, Isaiah understood that doing the right thing was about to cost him more than he had ever imagined. On the ground. Right now, Officer Kyle Mercer's roar thundered through the lobby before Isaiah Brooks could utter another word. Isaiah immediately obeyed. He slowly lowered the bundle wrapped inside his faded marine jacket onto the polished floor and stepped backward with both palms raised high. I found your... Shut your mouth! Mercer lunged forward, driving both hands into Isaiah's chest with enough force to send the 45-year-old veteran crashing onto the hard tile. The impact echoed throughout the station. Gasps erupted from civilians waiting for reports and permits. A little boy clung tightly to his father's leg. An elderly couple instinctively backed toward the wall. Isaiah groaned, but never resisted. He kept both hands visible. I wasn't trying to... Mercer planted one knee squarely between Isaiah's shoulder blades. You weren't trying to what? Mercer snarled. Sell my gun before somebody recognized it. He violently yanked Isaiah's arms behind his back. The metal handcuffs snapped shut with a sharp click. Too tight. Isaiah instinctively inhaled through clenched teeth as old injuries from military service flared beneath the pressure. Mercer noticed. He tightened the cuffs another notch. There. That's where thieves belong. Isaiah closed his eyes for a second. Not because of the pain, because he realized no explanation mattered anymore. Officer Melissa Carter hurried from behind the reception counter. Kyle let him explain. Mercer didn't even look at her. I already know everything I need to know. Melissa frowned. You don't. Mercer stood, picked up the revolver from the folded jacket using an evidence cloth, then held it high enough for everyone in the lobby to see. My missing duty weapon. He slowly turned toward the civilians. Does anybody honestly believe this man was bringing it back out of kindness? A few nervous voices answered. No. Not likely. Someone quietly muttered, he probably got caught. Isaiah heard every word. Each one landed heavier than the last. Mercer walked directly in front of him. You know what I think. Isaiah remained silent. I think you watched me chasing that suspect. Mercer paced slowly. I think you saw the gun. Another step, and instead of saying something, he leaned down until their faces were only inches apart. You figured a homeless black drifter could make a few $1,000s selling a police weapon on the street. Isaiah finally spoke. No. My wife taught me never to lie. Mercer laughed. Your wife? She passed away. The laughter disappeared only for a heartbeat before Mercer shrugged. Convenient. Officer Melissa looked visibly uncomfortable. Mercer. I've got this. She glanced toward Sergeant Robert Hayes, who had just entered the lobby after hearing the commotion. What happened? Mercer answered immediately. I found the guy who stole my weapon. Hayes looked toward Isaiah. You stole it. Isaiah calmly shook his head. I found it near Franklin Memorial Park. You expect us to believe that I carried it straight here? Mercer interrupted. He says that because he got caught. Isaiah met Hayes's eyes. I never tried to run. Mercer pointed toward the entrance. He was already inside the building, Where was he supposed to run? Several officers chuckled. Hayes folded his arms. Search him. Two officers carefully emptied Isaiah's backpack onto a nearby table. Out fell a folded American flag, a weathered Bible, a bottle of prescription medication, an old Marine Corps photograph, $3.47 in loose change, a half-eaten turkey sandwich wrapped inside a napkin. Silence settled briefly. One young officer picked up the photograph. The picture showed a smiling Isaiah in full Marine dress blues, surrounded by fellow Marines decades earlier. The officer looked surprised. "You were a Marine?" Isaiah nodded once. 12 years. Mercer rolled his eyes. So what? He snatched the photograph away. Lots of criminals used to wear uniforms. Without warning, he tossed the picture onto the floor. The frame cracked as it slid beneath a waiting chair. Isaiah's expression changed for the first time. Not anger, pain. Quiet, unmistakable pain. He stared at the photograph, but made no move toward it. Officer Melissa immediately bent down and carefully picked it up. She brushed away the dust before placing it gently back onto the evidence table. Mercer scoffed. "Don't start feeling sorry for him." Melissa looked directly at him. "I'm respecting military service." Mercer answered coldly. "I'm respecting the law." "The law also says we investigate before accusing." Mercer ignored her. Instead, he pulled out his body camera tablet. "I'll finish my report." Hayes nodded. "Go ahead." Mercer began speaking loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. At approximately 10:42 hours, I observed suspect Isaiah Brooks attempting to enter Cedar Ridge Police Department while concealing my stolen duty weapon beneath a military jacket. Isaiah immediately looked up. "That's not true." Mercer continued writing without pause. Suspect refused initial verbal commands. Isaiah frowned. "I never refused." Displayed suspicious behavior. I walked straight to the front desk. Likely intended to traffic stolen police property. Officer Melissa stepped forward. "None of that has been verified." Mercer finally looked at her. "Are you calling me a liar? I'm saying you haven't finished the investigation." Before Mercer could answer, Sergeant Hayes raised one hand. "Enough." The room became quiet again. Hayes walked toward Isaiah. "If you're telling the truth." Isaiah nodded. "I am." "Then explain exactly what happened." Isaiah took a slow breath. He described everything. Finding the revolver beneath the leaves. Looking for the owner, wrapping it inside his jacket so nobody would panic. Walking directly toward the station, helping an elderly woman, crossing Franklin Avenue, never once hiding, never once attempting to flee. His story never changed, not even one detail. Hayes listened carefully. Melissa listened even more carefully. Mercer crossed his arms impatiently. "What a beautiful story." Isaiah remained calm. "It's simply the truth." Mercer smirked. "Funny thing about truth." He walked closer again. "People like you always discover it after they're caught." Before Isaiah could answer, a dispatcher hurried into the lobby holding several printed pages. "Sergeant." Hayes accepted them. "What is it?" Maintenance checked the security cameras in Franklin Memorial Park. Hayes immediately looked hopeful. "Good." The dispatcher hesitated. "There isn't any footage." "What?" "The camera system went offline this morning." The words struck the room like a hammer. Mercer's smile slowly returned. Isaiah's heart sank. The one piece of evidence that could have supported his story had vanished. Mercer couldn't hide the satisfaction in his voice. Imagine that. He folded his arms. No witnesses. No camera. No proof. He looked directly into Isaiah's eyes. Looks like all we've got is the word of a homeless black man carrying a stolen police gun. Isaiah lowered his head. Not in shame, but because he suddenly realized something far more frightening than being handcuffed. The truth alone might not be enough to save him. Meanwhile, on the other side of the building, Chief David Reynolds stepped out of his vehicle after returning from a regional law enforcement meeting. Before he even reached the entrance, he could hear raised voices echoing from inside the station. He frowned. Something was very wrong, and within the next few minutes, one forgotten face from 16 years ago was about to turn an ordinary misconduct investigation into the most important day of his career. The interrogation room was barely large enough for 4 people. Gray concrete walls, a scratched metal table, 2 steel chairs bolted to the floor. Isaiah Brooks sat quietly, his cuffed hands resting on the tabletop. The fluorescent light above buzzed faintly, filling the silence between every breath. Officer Kyle Mercer dropped a thick file onto the table. "We'll make this easy." Isaiah looked up calmly. "I'm ready." Mercer leaned forward. "Confess that you stole my weapon, and maybe the prosecutor goes easy on you." Isaiah didn't blink. "I can't confess to something I didn't do." Mercer's jaw tightened. "You expect me to believe a homeless man walked half a mile just to return a loaded police revolver?" "Yes, nobody does that." Isaiah answered without hesitation. "My father did." Mercer frowned. "What?" "He taught me that your character is measured by what you do when nobody is watching." For a brief second, Mercer had no response. Then he scoffed. "Your father isn't sitting in this room." "No." Isaiah's voice softened. "But his lessons are." Mercer slammed both palms onto the table. "Enough." He slid a printed statement across the metal surface. "Sign it." Isaiah looked down. The statement claimed he had found the weapon and intended to keep it temporarily before changing his mind. Every word was false. "I won't sign." Mercer's expression darkened. "Think carefully." "I already have." "You'll spend years in prison." Isaiah met his eyes. "I'd rather lose my freedom than my integrity." The room fell silent. Officer Melissa Carter, standing behind the observation window, exchanged a glance with Sergeant Robert Hayes. "He hasn't changed his story once," she whispered. Hayes nodded slowly. "Not a single detail." "And Mercer keeps asking the same questions, trying to catch him in a contradiction." Melissa crossed her arms. "But there isn't one." Inside the room, Mercer tried again. "What time did you find the gun?" "A little after 10:30. "What direction were you walking?" "Toward Main Street." "What hand were you carrying it with?" "My left." "Why?" "My right shoulder still hurts from an old injury." Mercer checked his notes. Every answer matched the first interview perfectly. He hated it. Outside, Chief David Reynolds entered the station. The tense atmosphere greeted him before anyone spoke. He spotted Hayes immediately. "Report." Hayes handed him the preliminary file. "Officer Mercer lost his service weapon during a foot pursuit." Reynolds's face hardened. "He lost it." "Yes, sir." "And the suspect?" Hayes hesitated. "That's the problem." "There wasn't one." "We're not sure." He explained Isaiah's version of events from beginning to end. Reynolds listened without interruption. When Hayes finished, the chief asked only one question. "Did he come here voluntarily?" "Yes." "Did anyone arrest him outside?" "No." "He walked into the station carrying the weapon himself?" "Yes." Reynolds looked through the glass toward Isaiah. The veteran sat perfectly still despite the handcuffs. No shouting, no anger, no panic, just quiet patience. Has he asked for a lawyer? Hayes blinked. No. Has he demanded anything? No. Reynolds frowned. Interesting. Mercer emerged from the interrogation room. We've got him. Reynolds looked directly at him. What evidence? Mercer hesitated. He had my gun. I know that. What proves he stole it? Mercer answered quickly. He possessed it. Possession isn't theft. He couldn't explain why he had it. A calm voice interrupted. Yes, he could. Everyone turned. Melissa stepped forward. He explained exactly why. Mercer's eyes narrowed. You taking his side now? I'm taking the side of facts. Reynolds raised one hand. Enough. He opened the case file himself. Isaiah Brooks, age 45. No felony convictions, no violent offenses. One misdemeanor trespassing citation 3 years earlier after sleeping inside an abandoned warehouse during a winter storm. Nothing else. Reynolds looked up. Oh, that's his entire criminal history. Hayes nodded. Yes, sir. Mercer quickly added, career criminals don't always get caught. Reynolds ignored the comment. Instead, he turned another page. Military service, United States Marine Corps, 12 years, honorable discharge, several commendations. The chief paused. Something about the record caught his attention. Before he could read further, dispatch called from the front desk. Chief, we've received another call about the park. What is it? A young girl says she may have seen someone pick up Officer Mercer's gun. Every head in the room turned. Mercer's confidence vanished. Who is she? Emma Collins. What exactly did she see? She says she has a video. Silence swallowed the hallway. Melissa looked toward Mercer. Mercer looked toward the interrogation room. Inside, Isaiah remained seated exactly where they had left him. He had no idea Hope had just walked through the station doors. Nor did anyone realize that the small phone in a schoolgirl's backpack contained the first crack in the wall of lies Officer Kyle Mercer had been desperately trying to build. A strange silence settled over the hallway after the dispatcher mentioned the video. Officer Kyle Mercer was the first to break it. A kid, he scoffed. You're telling me our case now depends on a middle school girl's phone? The dispatcher answered carefully. She insisted the recording was important. Mercer forced a laugh. Kids imagine things all the time. But the confidence in his voice wasn't as convincing as it had been moments earlier. Chief David Reynolds noticed. So did Melissa Carter. The chief closed Isaiah Brooks's file without saying a word. Bring her in. Sukai, she's already on her way with her grandmother. Mercer's jaw tightened. I don't see why we're wasting time. Reynolds turned toward him. I decide what's a waste of time. The hallway became quiet again. For the first time since Isaiah had been arrested, Mercer lowered his eyes. Inside the interrogation room, Isaiah remained alone. The cuffs still circled his wrists. His untouched cup of water sat near the edge of the table. He stared at it absent-mindedly. Not because he was thirsty, because the reflection on the metal tabletop reminded him of another interrogation room nearly 20 years earlier. Only that room had been overseas. He had been wearing marine camouflage instead of a worn civilian jacket. Back then, every decision had meant life or death. Compared to war, this room should have felt small. Yet somehow, this hurt more. Because bullets came from enemies. Humiliation came from people he had sworn to protect. Isaiah quietly whispered to himself, "Stay calm." It was the same advice his platoon sergeant had repeated countless times. Panic makes good men make bad decisions. Isaiah closed his eyes. He would not lose control. Not today. Outside the room, Reynolds sat at his desk studying Isaiah's military record more carefully. His eyes paused on several commendations. Good Conduct Medal, Combat Action Ribbon, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal. Then another line, Bronze Star Medal. Reynolds leaned back. "Seen a Bronze Star." Melissa looked surprised. "That's not common." "No." Reynolds slowly nodded. "It isn't." Hayes crossed his arms. "A decorated combat veteran doesn't exactly fit the profile of someone stealing a police weapon." Mercer answered immediately. "Military service doesn't make someone innocent." "No," Reynolds replied calmly. "But it does mean we don't jump to conclusions." He continued reading. Medical retirement, post-traumatic stress disorder, permanent shoulder injury, housing instability, after losing immediate family. Reynolds sighed quietly. Life had not been kind to Isaiah Brooks, yet nothing in the file suggested dishonesty, only hardship. At that moment, the station doors opened. Emma Collins walked inside beside her grandmother. She clutched an aging smartphone tightly against her chest. She looked nervous. Officer Melissa immediately greeted her. "Hi, Emma." The girl nodded. "I came as fast as I could." Her grandmother gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "She hasn't stopped talking about that man." Melissa smiled reassuringly. "It's okay." Chief Reynolds approached. "I'm David Reynolds." Emma recognized him instantly. "The police chief." "That's right. You said you recorded something." Emma nodded. "I was making a video for my grandma." "What kind of video?" "She asked me to film squirrels because she likes watching them." Several officers exchanged confused glances. Emma unlocked her phone. "I think I accidentally recorded something else." Mercer's heartbeat quickened. He folded his arms. "It's probably useless." Reynolds didn't answer. "Can we see it?" Emma handed over the phone. The video began playing. The picture shook as Emma laughed while following two squirrels chasing each other around a large oak tree. 30 seconds passed. Nothing unusual. Mercer relaxed slightly. Then the camera suddenly tilted. Someone appeared in the background. Isaiah. He was bending near the walking trail. Emma's grandmother leaned forward. "That's him." The room became completely silent. The video continued. Isaiah brushed leaves aside. He discovered the revolver. Instead of grabbing it carelessly, he immediately picked it up with obvious caution, keeping the barrel pointed safely downward. Mercer's smile disappeared. On the recording, Isaiah could be heard calling loudly. "Officer?" No answer. He looked around again. "Hey, is anybody missing a firearm?" Only wind answered him. The video kept rolling. Marcus Green slowly approached. Even though their conversation was partially obscured by distance, one sentence was perfectly clear. Marcus asked, "What are you going to do?" Isaiah answered without hesitation. "I'm taking it straight to the police station." Every officer in the hallway heard it. Word for word. Nobody spoke. The recording continued another minute. Isaiah carefully wrapped the revolver inside his faded Marine jacket. Not to hide it. To prevent alarming people around him. Then he walked away. Toward downtown. Toward the station. Exactly as he had described. The video ended. Silence lingered for several long seconds. Melissa slowly lowered the phone. "He told the truth." Hayes nodded. "Every single word." Reynolds looked toward Mercer. "You said he couldn't explain why he had your weapon." Mercer swallowed. You said he intended to sell it. I believed. You wrote that he ignored police commands." Mercer hesitated. "There weren't any commands." Reynolds' voice grew colder. So, your report contains assumptions. Mercer quickly corrected himself. It was an honest mistake. Melissa couldn't stay silent. No. She looked directly at him. An honest mistake is losing your weapon. The report came afterward. Mercer's face flushed. Reynolds handed the phone back to Emma. You did the right thing. The girl glanced toward the closed interrogation room. Is that man okay? Reynolds looked through the glass. Isaiah was still sitting exactly where they had left him, hands cuffed, head slightly lowered, waiting. He will be. Emma frowned. He looked sad. Reynolds quietly answered. I think we owe him more than an apology. Before anyone moved, Reynolds reopened Isaiah's military file. His eyes drifted to one final page. Attached beneath the commendations was an old battlefield photograph taken 16 years earlier. Several young Marines stood beside local law enforcement officers participating in a joint security operation. One face instantly caught his attention, a much younger version of himself, standing beside. Reynolds leaned closer. His breathing slowed. No. The young Marine next to him wore the name Tape Brooks. Reynolds stared at the faded image, unable to look away. The face was younger. The hair was darker. But the eyes were unmistakable. A memory long buried began clawing its way back to the surface. And for the first time in 16 years, Chief David Reynolds felt the unmistakable fear that he had forgotten the name of the man who had once saved his life. Chief David Reynolds never took his eyes off the faded photograph. 16 years. The image had yellowed with age, but the young Marine standing beside him wore the same calm expression he had seen only minutes earlier through the interrogation room window. Isaiah Brooks. The name echoed in his mind. It felt familiar. Painfully familiar. But before the memory could fully surface, Officer Kyle Mercer stepped closer. Chief. Reynolds slowly lowered the photograph. What? The video only proves he found the gun. Reynolds looked at him without speaking. Mercer continued quickly. It doesn't prove he didn't think about keeping it first. Melissa Carter stared at him in disbelief. What? He could have changed his mind after realizing we'd already started searching. Hayes frowned. That's speculation. Mercer shook his head. It's common sense. Reynolds's voice remained calm. We don't arrest people based on speculation. So Mercer refused to back down. He still possessed stolen police property. No. Melissa corrected him immediately. He possessed lost police property. There is a legal difference. Mercer's jaw tightened. He should have called 911. Isaiah's quiet voice suddenly came from behind them. I don't own a phone. Everyone turned. Melissa had just escorted Isaiah out of the interrogation room, though the handcuffs remained locked around his wrists. For the first time since the arrest, Reynolds and Isaiah stood face to face. Only a few feet separated them. Reynolds studied him carefully. The weathered face, the gray beginning to spread through his beard, the scar running beneath his right jaw, and those eyes. Steady, disciplined, familiar. So, Reynolds finally said, You don't have a phone? Isaiah shook his head. I sold it 6 months ago. Why, to pay for medication. No one spoke. Isaiah continued quietly. My shoulder medicine. Melissa glanced toward his military record. The permanent injury. It matched perfectly. Mercer crossed his arms. That still doesn't explain why you touched the weapon. Isaiah answered immediately. I was afraid a child would find it. You could have left it. I couldn't. Why not? Isaiah looked directly at Mercer. Because I wore this country's uniform. The hallway became silent. My oath didn't end when I took it off. Even Sergeant Hayes lowered his eyes for a moment. Mercer laughed coldly. That's a nice speech. It isn't a speech. It's an excuse. Isaiah simply looked at him. No. It's who I am. Reynolds suddenly noticed something else. Isaiah unconsciously shifted his weight away from his right side every few seconds, the same side listed in his medical file. Does your shoulder still hurt? Isaiah looked surprised. Every day. Combat injury. Yes. Which battle? Isaiah hesitated. It doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me. Isaiah looked down. Operation Iron Shield. The word struck Reynolds harder than expected. Iron Shield. His heartbeat skipped. He had been there, not as a soldier, as a young police liaison assigned to assist military security during a federal operation. A fragmented image flashed through his mind. Smoke, gunfire, someone shouting. Then darkness. The memory disappeared as quickly as it had come. Reynolds rubbed his temple. Something was still missing. Mercer noticed the chief's distraction. He seized the opportunity. Chief, with all due respect, we're wasting valuable time. Reynolds looked at him. What do you suggest? Book him. Melissa turned sharply. After seeing the video, the prosecutor can sort it out. Hayes frowned. You still don't have probable cause for theft. Mercer answered immediately. Then unlawful possession. Melissa shook her head. He voluntarily surrendered it. He carried it through town. He was bringing it here. He says he was. The video says he was. Mercer's face reddened. He could feel control slipping away. His voice grew louder. We're forgetting one thing. Everyone looked toward him. He embarrassed this department. Silence. Mercer pointed directly at Isaiah. Whether he stole it or not, the media will blame us for losing a service weapon. Hayes couldn't believe what he was hearing. So this is about appearances. Mercer answered without thinking. It's about protecting the badge. Isaiah quietly spoke. The badge doesn't need protection from the truth. Mercer spun around. What did you say? Isaiah remained perfectly calm. I said, the badge doesn't lose honor because someone makes a mistake. It loses honor when someone lies to cover one. The words landed like a hammer. Melissa slowly exhaled. Hayes looked at the floor. Even the dispatcher behind the front desk stopped typing. Mercer's face turned crimson. You calling me a liar? Isaiah answered gently. I'm asking you not to become one. The hallway fell silent once more. Chief Reynolds watched Isaiah carefully. There was no hatred in his voice, no desire for revenge, only disappointment. That troubled Reynolds more than anger ever could. Most innocent people screamed. Most innocent people demanded justice. Isaiah did neither. He simply wanted the truth. Reynolds looked again at the battlefield photograph in his hand. His eyes drifted to Isaiah's right forearm. The sleeve of the faded jacket had slid back slightly. A long, jagged scar stretched from his wrist toward his elbow. Reynolds froze. That scar. He had seen it before. Not in a photograph. In firelight. Covered in blood. A voice echoed faintly inside his memory. Sir, stay down! Another flash. A burning patrol vehicle, bullets striking metal, strong hands dragging someone across shattered pavement. Reynolds's breathing became uneven. He looked from the scar to Isaiah's face, back to the scar again. His eyes widened. "No." He whispered the word so softly only Melissa heard it. "What is it, Chief?" Reynolds didn't answer. He slowly stepped closer to Isaiah, closer than anyone expected. Isaiah looked confused. "Sir..." Reynolds stared into his eyes. For several endless seconds, neither man spoke. Then Reynolds asked one question, a question no one else in the station understood. "Were you ever in Fallujah in October?" Isaiah blinked. His expression changed for the first time since entering the station. Recognition flickered across his tired face. Very slowly. He nodded, and in that single movement, the final missing piece of a 16-year-old memory began falling into place. The hallway became so quiet that everyone could hear the old wall clock ticking above the reception desk. Chief David Reynolds never looked away from Isaiah Brooks. "Were you ever in Fallujah in October?" Isaiah stared at him for several seconds. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. "Yes, sir." Reynolds swallowed. "What company or 2nd Battalion? What year? 2010. The chief's breathing grew uneven. "Operation Iron Shield," Isaiah answered softly. "Yes." Mercer looked back and forth between them, clearly confused. "What does any of this have to do with the stolen gun?" No one answered him. Reynolds took another slow step toward Isaiah. His voice had become almost a whisper. There was an explosion. Isaiah lowered his eyes. There were several. "A police liaison," Isaiah looked up again, "was trapped." The veteran's expression changed. For the first time all day, emotion appeared in his eyes. "You were there." It wasn't a question. Reynolds felt a chill race through his body. "You remember?" Isaiah gave a faint, weary smile. "I never forgot." The hallway around them seemed to disappear. The sounds of ringing telephones, computer keyboards, police radios. Everything faded beneath memories that neither man had spoken about in 16 years. Reynolds saw it as though it were happening again. A convoy entering the outskirts of Fallujah. An improvised explosive device erupting beneath the lead vehicle. Gunfire exploding from abandoned buildings. Chaos, smoke, screams. His patrol SUV spinning sideways before crashing into a concrete barrier. The driver's door jammed shut. Flames spreading beneath the dashboard. He remembered trying to kick the door open. Nothing moved. The heat became unbearable. Outside, bullets struck the windshield faster than rain. He remembered believing this was how he was going to die. Then another memory surfaced. Someone running toward the burning vehicle. Not away from danger. Toward it. A Marine, ignoring the gunfire, ignoring the flames, ignoring shouted warnings. That Marine smashed the passenger side window with the butt of his rifle. Reached through broken glass. Unlocked the door. Dragged Reynolds across the pavement moments before the SUV exploded. The blast threw both men several feet across the road. The Marine landed on his right arm. A jagged piece of twisted metal sliced deep into his forearm. The scar Reynolds had just seen. His breathing stopped. "Oh, my God." Melissa looked from Isaiah to the chief. Reynolds slowly turned Isaiah's right arm over. The long scar matched the one burned forever into his memory. His hands began trembling. "It was you." Isaiah quietly nodded. "You pulled me out. I did what anyone in my unit would have done." "No." Reynolds's voice cracked. "They couldn't. They were pinned down. You came alone. The hallway remained frozen. Even officers who had never heard of Operation Iron Shield instinctively understood something extraordinary was unfolding. Mercer shook his head impatiently. "Chief," Reynolds ignored him. "You carried me almost 50 yards. Isaiah smiled faintly. "You were heavier than you looked." Several officers blinked in surprise. The quiet joke broke years of silence between the two men. Reynolds laughed once, then tears unexpectedly filled his eyes. "I searched for you." Isaiah looked genuinely surprised. "You did? They evacuated me before I could even learn your full name. I only remembered." Reynolds stopped. "Brooks." He looked down at the military file still in his hand. "I've spent 16 years wondering whether the Marine who saved me survived." Isaiah answered simply, "I survived." There was no pride in his voice, only gratitude. Barely. Chief Reynolds took one slow breath, then another. He looked down at the steel handcuffs still wrapped tightly around Isaiah's wrists. His expression changed instantly. "What are we doing?" No one answered. His voice suddenly thundered across the station. "Who ordered these handcuffs to stay on?" The room jolted. Mercer quickly answered. "I did, Chief." Reynolds turned sharply. "Why, he was in possession of—" "I asked why he is still restrained after video evidence cleared him." Mercer hesitated. You had no probable cause." "I believed—" "You assumed." "I was protecting—" "You were protecting yourself." The words struck Mercer harder than any punch. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Reynolds stepped directly in front of Isaiah. His voice softened once more. "Mr. Brooks." Isaiah looked up. "I owe you something I should have said 16 years ago." Without hesitation. Chief David Reynolds stood at attention. Every officer instinctively watched, slowly, deliberately. He raised his right hand and rendered a perfect salute. The police station froze. Melissa's eyes widened. Sergeant Hayes straightened instinctively. Dispatchers stopped answering phones. Even civilians waiting in the lobby stood speechless. A police chief had just saluted a handcuffed homeless veteran. Reynolds held the salute. "Thank you." His voice trembled. "For saving my life." Isaiah's eyes filled with tears for the first time. Not because of the salute, not because of the words, but because after 16 years, someone finally remembered. Chief Reynolds lowered his hand. His next order echoed through every corner of the station. "Officer Carter." "Yes, Chief." "Remove Mr. Brooks's handcuffs." Melissa hurried forward with the key. The metal clicked softly. Isaiah slowly rubbed his sore wrists. Deep red marks circled both arms. Reynolds looked at them. His expression hardened. He turned toward Kyle Mercer. "We're not finished." Mercer felt the floor disappear beneath him, because he suddenly realized this was no longer about a lost gun. It was about abusing the very man whose courage had allowed the chief of police to live long enough to wear that badge. And the consequences were only beginning. The handcuffs had barely hit the evidence counter before Chief David Reynolds turned toward the entire station. "No one leaves." His voice carried the unmistakable authority of a man who had commanded officers for decades. This station is now under an internal review. Every conversation stopped. Every radio became silent. Officer Kyle Mercer stood frozen beside the reception desk, unable to read the expression on the chief's face. Reynolds looked toward Captain Linda Foster, who had just arrived after receiving an urgent call from Internal Affairs. "Captain." "Chief." I want Officer Kyle Mercer relieved of duty immediately. Mercer's head snapped upward. Chief! Reynolds raised one hand. You'll have your chance to speak. Linda Foster stepped beside Mercer. Officer, please surrender your badge, firearm, and department credentials. The color drained from Mercer's face. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. This is because of him. Mercer pointed toward Isaiah. Reynolds' eyes hardened. No. This is because of you. The lobby watched in stunned silence as Mercer slowly unclipped his badge from his uniform. His hands trembled. One by one, he placed his service weapon badge, patrol keys, and identification card onto the front desk. The metallic sounds echoed through the station like the closing of a chapter. Captain Foster opened a notebook. Officer Mercer, did you knowingly submit information in your incident report before verifying the facts? Mercer hesitated. I reported what I believed. That's not what I asked. Were you aware that the suspect entered the station voluntarily? Yes. Were you aware he made no attempt to flee? Yes. Were you aware he repeatedly stated he intended to return your firearm? Yes. And yet you wrote that he ignored police commands, concealed evidence, and intended to traffic a stolen weapon. Mercer swallowed hard. I made assumptions. Captain Foster closed the notebook. Police reports are not written with assumptions. Reynolds added quietly, they're written with facts. Across the lobby, Isaiah stood beside Melissa Carter. His wrists were still red from the cuffs. Melissa gently handed him the folded marine photograph Mercer had thrown onto the floor earlier. I'm sorry. Isaiah carefully brushed the cracked frame with his thumb. You don't owe me an apology. I was part of this station. You also tried to stop it. Melissa lowered her eyes. I should have spoken louder. Isaiah smiled gently. You spoke when it mattered. Those words hit Melissa harder than she expected. At that moment, Rachel Morgan from Channel 7 News entered the station with her cameraman. Chief Reynolds. He turned. Not now, Rachel. I understand. She glanced toward Isaiah. But the entire city is already talking about a homeless veteran arrested for returning a police gun. Someone had uploaded the lobby footage. It had spread across social media within an hour. Millions of views. Thousands of angry comments. Most viewers still believed Isaiah was guilty. Rachel looked at Reynolds. People deserve the truth. The chief thought for a long moment, then nodded. Set up your camera. Mercer looked horrified. Chief, you want to hold a press conference? No, Reynolds answered firmly. I want to correct a lie. 20 minutes later, television cameras filled the station lobby. Reporters from every local network crowded together. City employees, residents, even several officers who had finished their shifts remained behind. Nobody wanted to miss what was about to happen. Chief Reynolds stepped to the podium. Isaiah stood quietly several feet behind him, still wearing the same faded military jacket, still carrying the same worn backpack. Nothing about his appearance had changed. Only the way people looked at him. Reynolds began. My name is David Reynolds, Chief of Police for Cedar Ridge. He paused. Earlier today, Mr. Isaiah Brooks was publicly treated as a criminal after voluntarily returning a firearm lost by one of my officers. Camera shutters exploded. Reynolds continued. The evidence now confirms Mr. Brooks found the weapon in Franklin Memorial Park. He immediately attempted to locate its owner. When unsuccessful, he carried it directly to this station. He never attempted to conceal it for personal gain. He never fled. He never resisted. He never lied. The reporters furiously wrote every word. Reynolds slowly looked toward Isaiah. What happened today should never have happened. His voice grew heavier. This department failed an honorable man. He stepped away from the podium, then did something no reporter expected. He walked directly toward Isaiah. Standing face to face before every camera in the room, Reynolds spoke loudly enough for the entire city to hear. 16 years ago. This man ran into enemy fire. He broke open a burning vehicle. He carried me to safety. He received permanent injuries doing it. If Isaiah Brooks had not risked his own life that day. Reynolds looked down briefly before raising his eyes again. I would not be standing here today. An audible gasp swept across the room. Rachel lowered her microphone. Several officers exchanged stunned looks. No one had known, not even Melissa. Reynolds continued, See, the greatest shame isn't that Officer Mercer lost his firearm. He turned toward Mercer. The greatest shame is that the man who once saved the life of this police chief was forced to defend his own honesty inside this very building. Silence. Heavy, painful, necessary. Mercer's shoulders slumped. He could no longer meet anyone's eyes. One elderly reporter slowly raised her hand. Chief, Chitikari, yes. What would have happened if that little girl's video had never existed? The question struck everyone. Reynolds answered honestly. Then we might have sent an innocent man into the criminal justice system. No excuses, no hesitation, only truth. He turned once more toward Isaiah. There is one final thing I need to do. Reynolds removed the chief's challenge coin from his uniform pocket. It was a coin awarded only in the rarest circumstances to recognize extraordinary integrity and service to the community. He placed it carefully into Isaiah's hand. This coin is usually given to police officers. He smiled through tear-filled eyes. Today, it belongs to a Marine whose integrity reminded every officer in this building what our badge is supposed to represent. Isaiah stared silently at the coin resting in his weathered palm. His fingers trembled. Not because it was valuable, because after years of being ignored, someone had finally seen the man behind the worn jacket. As applause slowly filled the station, Isaiah looked up toward the American flag hanging above the lobby. He whispered so quietly that only Melissa standing beside him could hear. I hope I made you proud, Dad. Melissa turned away, wiping tears from her eyes. But one chapter of justice still remained unfinished. Because tomorrow morning, Officer Kyle Mercer would have to face consequences far beyond losing his badge, and Isaiah Brooks was about to receive something he had never expected to receive again. A place to call home. The morning sun cast long golden rays across Cedar Ridge City Square. American flags fluttered gently above the stage that had been assembled overnight. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the plaza. Police officers stood beside firefighters. Veterans sat shoulder to shoulder with ordinary citizens. Families filled every remaining seat. No one had expected the city's annual community honor ceremony to become something far more meaningful. Chief David Reynolds stood behind the podium waiting for the crowd to settle. The events of the previous day had spread far beyond Cedar Ridge. Television stations across Georgia had replayed the footage repeatedly. Millions had watched Isaiah Brooks walk into a police station carrying a lost service weapon. Millions had also watched the truth emerge. The comments beneath the videos had changed completely. He deserved respect from the beginning. That Marine never stopped serving his country. We judged him before we knew him. Reynolds looked toward the front row. Isaiah sat quietly in a freshly pressed navy blazer, donated by a local veterans organization. His beard had been trimmed, his boots had been polished, yet nothing about his posture had changed. He still sat with the quiet discipline of a Marine. Marcus Green smiled proudly from the seat beside him. Emma Collins waved enthusiastically every time Isaiah glanced in her direction. Her grandmother squeezed his shoulder. "Told you people would finally see you." Isaiah smiled gently. They're seeing kindness. They're seeing themselves. Chief Reynolds stepped to the microphone. "Yesterday, our department failed one man." He paused. "But today, our city has the opportunity to honor him." The applause began immediately. Reynolds raised one hand. "Before we continue, there is official business." Captain Linda Foster walked onto the stage carrying a folder. She opened it before the audience. Following a preliminary internal affairs investigation, Officer Kyle Mercer has been suspended without pay, pending formal disciplinary proceedings. The crowd remained silent. This investigation includes allegations of negligence, filing inaccurate official reports, abuse of authority, and conduct unbecoming an officer. Mercer was not present. He had resigned his patrol privileges the night before. Whether he would ever wear a badge again would be decided later. Reynolds folded the statement. "No badge is stronger than the truth." Those words echoed through the square. The chief looked toward Isaiah. "Mr. Brooks, would you join me?" The audience rose to its feet before Isaiah even reached the stage. The applause continued for nearly a full minute. Isaiah looked overwhelmed. He quietly whispered to Reynolds, "I've never had people clap for me before." Reynolds smiled. "They're not applauding what you did yesterday. They're applauding the man you've been your entire life." Isaiah's eyes glistened. A young police cadet stepped forward carrying a polished wooden presentation case. Inside rested Officer Mercer's restored service revolver. It had been completely inspected, cleaned, and rendered safe for the ceremony. Reynolds opened the case. "Yesterday, this firearm represented suspicion." He closed the lid gently. "Today, it represents integrity." Turning toward Isaiah, he continued, "Mr. Brooks, you returned this weapon because you believed it was the right thing to do. You expected nothing in return, but your example reminded every officer in this department that public trust is earned one honest decision at a time." Reynolds presented Isaiah with the case, not as a gift, as a symbol. The audience applauded once again. Then Reynolds surprised everyone. "There is one final announcement." He motioned toward the mayor, who walked onto the stage holding another envelope. Not after speaking with local veterans organizations, business leaders, and members of this community. The mayor smiled warmly. "We've received more support than anyone imagined." A large screen behind the stage lit up. Photographs appeared one after another. A small brick house, a modest front porch, a neatly kept yard. Then another image, a maintenance workshop owned by a local manufacturing company. The mayor continued, "Mr. Brooks, this home has been donated fully furnished by members of our community." Isaiah covered his mouth, unable to speak, and beginning next Monday, you will become the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Cedar Ridge Veterans Resource Center. The position includes full medical benefits, counseling services, and a permanent salary. Isaiah blinked repeatedly as tears finally rolled down his cheeks. His voice broke. "I don't know what to say." Emma shouted happily from the audience, "Say yes." Laughter rippled across the crowd. Isaiah laughed through his tears. Then, "Yes." The applause was louder than ever. After the ceremony ended, people formed a long line to shake Isaiah's hand. Veterans embraced him. Police officers thanked him. Children asked for photographs. One elderly Marine wearing a faded campaign hat stopped in front of Isaiah, without saying a word. He saluted. Isaiah immediately returned the salute. Neither man spoke. They didn't need to. Some things only veterans understood. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Chief Reynolds walked with Isaiah toward the memorial overlooking the square. The names of local service members were engraved into polished black granite. Reynolds finally asked the question that had remained in his heart all day. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone you saved my life?" Isaiah looked across the memorial. "Because I wasn't trying to become someone's hero. I was just trying to make sure another man got to go home." Reynolds smiled sadly. "And yesterday? You almost lost yours because of us." Isaiah shook his head. "No. I almost lost faith." He looked toward the police station in the distance. "But people like Melissa, Sergeant Hayes, Emma, and you, they gave it back." As the sun dipped lower over Cedar Ridge, Isaiah unlocked the front door of his new home. The rooms were simple, clean, peaceful. He placed 3 things carefully on the mantel above the fireplace: the folded American flag, the cracked Marine photograph, and Chief Reynolds's challenge coin. 3 reminders of sacrifice, of pain, and of hope. Before turning out the lights, Isaiah whispered the same words his father had once taught him as a boy. "Doing the right thing doesn't always make life easier, but it always lets you sleep with a clear conscience." Outside, the porch light glowed warmly against the evening sky. For the first time in many years, Isaiah Brooks wasn't wondering where he would sleep. He was finally home.
Life has a way of revealing the truth, even when appearances tell a different story. Never underestimate the quiet strength of integrity, and never judge someone's worth by their circumstances. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. And if you believe kindness and justice still matter, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories.